And welcome again to another edition of Ski-U-Mah Weekly, presented by the Minnesota Lottery here on the Gopher Sports Facebook page. I'm Justin Gaard from KFAN Radio and the Gopher Radio Network, and we're glad to have you here like we do each and every Monday. Super excited about our guest today. You're going to hear a lot about his storied career here at the University of Minnesota as the show goes on, but it's former basketball player and current basketball radio analyst Spencer Tollackson.
Were you being facetious?
I was being a little bit facetious.
That's okay. Yeah. What's going on? Not a lot. Getting geared up for the game against Drake tonight. It's been a bit of an up and down start, but hopefully they can bounce back.
Let's start with that up and down start and remind people that this is the Facebook show. It's here for the audience. If you've got questions for Spencer, drop them in the comments section. We'll get to those as we move along here. The Gophers take on Drake tonight, 7 o'clock at Williams Arena. Start 7-0. Now have lost 3 out of the last 4.
Yeah.
Obviously, the schedule has gotten a little bit tougher. I think going into the season, people looked at that Thanksgiving time towards where we are right now before the finals break, that was going to be the meaty part of the schedule. That has borne fruit because it has been kind of meaty for the Gophers. What's gone on the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, you looked at the schedule at the beginning of the season, and obviously, as you alluded to, it was the meaty part, the most difficult stretch that they would endure pre-real Big Ten starting. I think, losing at home against Miami without one of your starting guards and Dupree McBrayer. Look, there's no such things as moral victories or hold your head held high type of thing, but I can live with that one. Obviously, yeah. Miami's a Final Four type of talent. They got some really good players, and then you go on the road and. To me, it was a little bit of the way that they lost at Nebraska. I thought that Nebraska was far more the physical team. And then to lose, the Arkansas game, Arkansas is a different team at home. They shot the lights out in the first half, and then it's an uphill battle. And, Bakari Konate doesn't even make the trip because of the concussion protocol. So, I think it's a little bit of they're in a little bit of the meat grinder now defensively. They got to figure some things out with their ball screen defense in particular. But it's easy to get down on a team. I haven't seen the rankings yet. They're probably going to follow the top 25.
Yeah.
The sky isn't falling. It's a long year. There's plenty of opportunities left. But they got some things to work out before the Big Ten, for sure.
Well, it is funny because it's, as we sit here, December whatever, and people are panicking because they've lost 3 of 4.
Yeah.
But there is, like you mentioned, a long way to figure it out. And some of the things they need to figure out are defense, which we've talked a little bit about, but also finding that depth and creating that depth, because once Eric Curry got hurt this offseason, they were already a little bit thin. Now Bakari doesn't make the trip. They're going to have to reinvent some things there a little bit, right?
Yeah, the depth isn't where you would obviously like it to be, and where Pitino, as he was gearing up for this year and recruiting and that whole thing, nobody was anticipating Eric Curry being out with an injury for the course of this season. The 2 of the 4 guys that play significant minutes off the bench are true freshmen,
right?
In Harris and Washington. Those guys are going to have to play. They're going to have to grow up really quickly. Bakari Konate, I thought, has spelled Reggie for the most part pretty well this year. I think they need to get a little bit more out of Fitzgerald and a little bit more out of Michael Hurt. But to me, guys just have to, it's the old cliche, right? But just to step up. There's going to be opportunities throughout the course of the rest of the season, in the Big Ten in particular. There's always going to be somebody within foul trouble every single game. But guys got to grow up quickly. You look back at the Miami game, they played Washington. Well, first of all, he started. He started, and they played him some significant minutes, which I think normally they probably wouldn't put a freshman in that type of position. So he's going to have to, out of anybody, he's probably going to have to grow up the quickest.
One consistent bright spot throughout all of it, the victories and the last couple of losses, Jordan Murphy's at like a different level this year. It's been interesting to me, Spence. People have said, wow, where did Jordan Murphy come from? Well, he was also 3rd team All Big Ten a year ago, so it's not like he's come out of nowhere. Everybody remembers Nate was so good last year, but Murph seems to have taken a completely different step as well. What have you seen?
Yeah, he's, you look at his career, he was 1st team All Big Ten freshman his first year. Last year he got off to that really slow start, and it was halfway throughout the season he had that sit-down conversation with Richard Pitino. And I mean, this is a preposterous statement nomination perhaps, but the second half of last year he was legitimately putting up like Draymond Green type of numbers when Draymond Green was in college. So he had a really good finish to the year last year. The thing that I think he's done better at this year and progressed in the summer in preparing for this season is, he's so good at 15 feet and putting the ball on the floor and getting to the rim. If there's one thing he can even do better at is finishing through some contact, because last couple games have proven teams are just going to hack him. They're not going to call a foul every time.
Right.
He's better at the free throw line. he's putting up legitimately some of, if not the best numbers in college basketball. I think there may be a couple of guys that have better numbers than he does, both rebounding and points and rebounding perspective. Having a great year, they're going to need him to continue to have this type of season throughout the Big Ten.
Let's get to our Facebook questions now. A reminder, drop them in the comments section here on the Facebook page. We'll take as many as we can here in the next couple of minutes. Our first clearly wants to jump off the cliff after 3 games, 3 losses in 4 games, wondering if the team deserves to be ranked. Not very well. How representative of this team, or is that the last couple games they played? You get the tweets, I get the tweets. People are disappointed in how the games have been lost. Obviously, 2 on the road. You know, you mentioned the Nebraska game. You didn't quite like how they got after it, but Arkansas was, just watching it from where I was. You were courtside. I think wearing basically the same suit. It looks very nice.
It was close.
It was close.
I appreciate that.
But you watch Arkansas shoot 67% at home. You mentioned they're a different team, but what do you take from those 2 games that you either scrap or move forward with?
Yeah, I think, well, the Arkansas game in particular, I mean, Reggie played, I think it was like 8 minutes, fouled out in legitimately 8 minutes of play. So you got to think, you know, he's going to play on average many more minutes than he did in the Arkansas game, which, you know, this team is such a different team defensively when Reggie's on the bench. It changes the whole complexion of what they're trying to do when he's not in the game. I think to address the question specifically, you have to go back to what were the expectations at the beginning of the year. Like, were people think they were just going to run the table and win the national title and not lose a game? This is a team they're going to lose some games this year. They're going to take their lumps. But I think legitimately the expectation was I thought they'd probably start the Big Ten 2-0, and they'd probably lose some combination of non-Big Ten games, probably 2 of them. So there may be 1 game behind what I thought they could potentially be to start this year at this point in the season. They're just going to have to go make up for 1 of them throughout this year.
David is our next question, wants to know about the addition of Turo and Gabe and Jarvis, the 3 local recruits that they're signing for next year. If you've been following the non-conference and high school basketball, these guys have been playing in a lot of these high-profile games. The Breakdown Classic was this past weekend at Hopkins. What do you know about the 3 recruits for next year? I think the one that's going to have to play the most significant role next year is Oturo. I think, you know, obviously with Reggie graduating, Picari's going to be gone. I think Gass is even a senior, so he's going to be gone. I think he's one of those guys that's going to have the most significant impact going into the year next year. And certainly at the guard position, you know, you would assume that Washington's going to be inserted into that point guard spot with losing Mason. But, you know, you lose Lynch and Mason next year. That's a lot to make up for. Right.
Yeah.
What's it like as a local kid? You're from Chaska High School.
Sure.
You grew up here. You played at Williams Arena.
Yeah.
What are these guys in for, I guess, is the best way to put it? What's their experience going to be like as a Minnesota boy coming to play here?
Yeah, it was I always encourage, put it this way, like you look at like Trey and Tyus, can you fault those guys for going to Duke? No, I would never fault a kid for wanting to leave, but there is something to be said about staying home with this community, having your family and your parents and the whole deal, being able to come to your games. There is something to be said about that. I had a great experience here in my 4 years. I would say that there is a certain level of expectations for guys that do decide to stay home, just because the fan base knows a lot more about you.
Right.
I found it somewhat difficult to try to live up to those expectations. But I mean, it's a terrific place to be. I would always encourage people to stay home. It's a great university. Clearly, Richard Pitino, the program's in tremendous hands right now. And there's something to be said about staying home and playing. I mean, I would go. You can attest to this. You know, you go to games with when you're a kid with your dad when you're like 10 years old. It's
right.
There's something cool about going to those games and dreaming about playing there and then being able to fulfill that dream.
They should bring you in on the recruiting pitch. That was
pretty
good.
Right? That was
the
okay.
Kids, you'd have
I
everybody.
Scripted it a few times this morning because I knew that question would come up. It was okay, though. Okay.
Well, let's get to Lori. Do you think some of the fouls called at Arkansas were just how Big Ten basketball is going to be played? That's always the question, too. The officiating, everybody was bitter about that because Reggie played 37 seconds.
Yeah.
But what do you think about that part of it in general?
Yeah, I thought the officiating in Arkansas was okay. I thought it was significantly subpar, is what we'll say. We'll try to be somewhat politically correct here, at Nebraska. I mean, I made the comment earlier that the way that teams, I think, are going to defend Murphy moving forward, You know, they're going to allow him to get to the paint, and then they're just going to foul him because the officials aren't going to call it every single time.
Right.
Nebraska, now give them all the credit. They were far more physical. They were the more physical team for all 40 minutes. But I think Minnesota relies on their ability to drive, to get to the rim, and to get to the free throw line. One of their goals is to make more free throws than the opposition even attempts. When they're not able to do that, at times they can struggle to score, and when the officials let it loose and they let it become very much of a physical, rugged Big Ten game, it's hard to have that production offensively.
Last thing, conference play starts. It's already started. The Gophers are 1-1.
It's weird.
They
still weird.
Kind of limped in.
Right?
It officially starts in January.
Yep.
Give us your state of the state on the Big Ten Conference in general. We all know about Michigan State and maybe Purdue and Minnesota up there, but what about the rest?
I think the three teams, as you alluded to at the top, Michigan State, Minnesota, Purdue, in any particular order. Clearly Michigan State's at the top of that right now, being ranked third in the country. I think it's a somewhat down year in the Big Ten. That being said, there's always a couple of teams that surprise us. So far this year, I've been surprised by Ohio State. They've turned some heads. I mean, they won, I think, 28-30, something like that, at Wisconsin at the Kohl Center, which leads me into Wisconsin. They're clearly down this year. They have some injuries coming up with Trice, who's out indefinitely. They struggled even when he was in the lineup. I think this could be the year that the Big Ten struggles to get their typical quota of teams in the NCAA tournament. They might get 6 teams in this year, which is not typical considering they're a 14-team league.
Well, we had expectations for you on this show
today.
Did
I exceed them?
You met them. I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say you exceeded them, but
okay,
you met them. We hope to do it again at some point during the year.
Yeah, I'd be glad to be back.
Thanks a lot. He's Spencer Tollackson. You can listen to him tonight on Twin Cities News Talk, AM 1130 and 103.5. On the FM side, the pregame show starts at 6:30. The tip against Drake from Williams Arena just after 7. When we come back here on Ski-U-Mah Weekly, if you follow the Gopher Football specialists, you know they're always up to something. Most of the time it's good. We'll get caught up on what exactly they're doing this holiday season to help others. That's coming up.
Gopher Men's Basketball hosts Drake University on Monday at 7 o'clock at Williams Arena. Tickets and more information are available at gophersports.com.
When it's going right, it's going right. Here's Lynch, a dunk and a foul.
Welcome back to Ski-U-Mah Weekly here on the Minnesota Sports Facebook page, brought to you by the Minnesota Lottery. I'm Justin Gaard. I mentioned we were going to talk a little bit of football this holiday season, and who better to do that than a couple of the Gopher specialists. We have long snapper all the way down to my left here, Payton Jordahl, as well as holder Casey O'Brien, and they're bringing the festivities to the Facebook Live show for the first time all season, as you can see. Guys, first of all, thanks for taking the time. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having
us. Your normal holiday apparel right here. You were just here out on the street wearing these sweaters, and we pulled you in, right?
Exactly, yeah. You called us this morning, and we said, okay, we're here. And this is what we were wearing.
Well, if people have followed at Min Specialists, I don't know, the last 4 or 5 years, people understand you guys are always up to either something funny or something to help other people. And I know this holiday season, Payton, you guys are kind of continuing the tradition that the specialists started a couple of years ago.
Yes, well, even to be more specific, Peter Mortel started a really great thing. We've been doing work with the Masonic Children's Hospital for many years, and Pete took the initiative to fundraise a good amount of money and take these kids on shopping sprees. During the holiday season, many of these children are spending their holidays in the hospitals with their family, and their families are most likely away from their families as well. So we want to try to carry that on with Pete and continue that tradition as well.
And Casey, as someone who spent a lot of time in the hospital over the last couple of years, you obviously have a different perspective of this entire thing. Take us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I spent the week before Christmas in the hospital, and then I've also spent Thanksgiving in the hospital. So I mean, I know what it's like to be sitting in there in the hospital, and it's obviously not very fun. So I'm really looking forward to getting the chance to go back there and kind of be on the other side and offer some words of advice and couple good presents this Christmas season.
It seems like under Coach Fleck as well, you guys have taken the serving and giving mantra to a completely different level. Payton, your story this past year for what you have, did with your relationship with the homeless guy out on the street for your class and everything. But what has that part of the culture been like, since Coach Fleck and his staff got here in January? You guys have always been doing stuff for other people, but it seems like it's even gone to a different level.
Yeah, I would say, in the past, like you mentioned, we've been doing things like this, and not to say that past staffs have not encouraged it and been proud of it, but with the new culture that Coach Fleck has implemented here, it's so positive, and it encourages us to do stuff like that because our head coach is doing it as well, and so it's the standard now. It's not doing extra, going above and beyond. It's what we're expected to do, and I like that part a lot. It makes it easier for us, and this having our shopping spree for Children's Hospital and donating and fundraising money is not even just a specialist thing. This year we're continuing on with the whole team, and it's really going to help add more elements to it. It's going to be fun.
What have the differences been? I know you're a freshman here, so you might have the perspective there, but whether it was the turkey drive this year or the diaper drive during training camp, what has that whole experience been like to be a part of those things, Casey?
It's been pretty cool. Like, obviously, I've kind of been around the team for a while, but with this year, it's kind of like there's always opportunities in front of you. Like, we get emails every week, and then we get texts from Coach Wilson or East Wilson, and he'll send out, like, we have this, this week. Just text me if you want to be a part of it. And obviously, that turkey drive, it was started with a small idea and then kind of took off and got covered by a couple news stations, and we had a good time out there. A little chilly, but we had a good time out there.
What's the best way for people that are watching this now, or maybe watching it a little bit later on Facebook, what's the best way that they can help you guys out or get involved themselves?
Yes, so we're in the works of creating a GoFundMe page, and as soon as we get that up and running, we will post that on all sources of social media, from Gopher Football to our Gopher Specialist accounts to even our personal Twitter accounts. So if you guys just keep your eyes open on Facebook and Twitter, you will be able to access that link and give whatever you can give.
Last thing, Casey, you're also up for an award here, I found out in the last week or so, and I had to write it down because it's an impressive website and an interesting award. The Uplifting Athletes Rare Disease Champion. You are a finalist as a two-time survivor of cancer or beater of cancer. People can look on all kinds of different social media accounts for ways to vote there. I know we tweeted it out earlier today as well. But what's that experience been like to, it sounds weird to get recognition, but just create awareness for what you've gone through?
I think it's really cool. If you go on that website and you read the three other guys who are up for it with me, it's all pretty incredible stories. So it's pretty cool. You kind of just go about your daily life, and then just not really thinking that what you're doing is that special. And then to get recognized by the entire NCAA as one of four guys, it's pretty special. So it's an honor. It really is.
What's it been like? Last question for maybe both of you. The group of specialists, starting with Pete. Really developing this kind of cult following over the years, and continuing it with Ryan Santoso and Emmett Carpenter, of course, who are going to be a part of this as well. What's that whole experience been like for you, Payton?
Yeah, well, it's been very special, I would say, coming in as a true freshman, especially coming from a small town up north in Minnesota. I was in over my head, to be honest, and being able to have those older guys kind of let me make mistakes and learn from them, but also guide me through my first few months and first few years of college has really helped me a lot. And I know Casey's been able to be part of our specialist culture since he was in high school.
Right.
And so Casey's got more years on it than I do, honestly, probably.
Well, I was going to say, you're used to it as as your dad was obviously a coach here and administrator here, so you've been on the field forever. I've been doing it 7 years. I remember you when you were little. But what's it been like to watch that whole journey from when you were playing catch with your dad on the field to now you're on that field as a player?
It's amazing to be a part of, because kind of always looked up to these guys, and now being right there, just working with them every day. It's cool to be a part of the group, and the cult following that you're talking about. I mean, find another place in the company or in the country where you can find 37 jerseys in the crowd, where there's 100 jerseys in the bookstore. Find another place in the country. So it's a great place to be a specialist right here in the University of Minnesota.
Is there a light switch on this thing? How do we turn that on?
I'm not sure. I had it in my bedroom, and it kept me up all night last night.
I was going to say, hopefully it turns off at some point.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks for coming today. Best of luck the next couple of weeks with what you're trying to do to help some kids out, and we'll see you hopefully in the next couple of weeks with some good news.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks for having us on. I appreciate it.
Payton Jordahl, Casey O'Brien. Don't forget to find their GoFundMe page. When we get that thing rolling, it will be impossible to miss. We want to congratulate Lori. She is our question of the day winner, so she will win a Minnesota Lottery prize pack. We'll be in touch about that. Thanks everybody for watching this week. I'll remind you, next week is National Signing Day when it comes to football. So no Monday show. We will do that on Wednesday, December 20th. It's going to be bright and early in the morning. I know some of our student staff is really looking forward to getting up really early to show you all the new Gopher football players, get some thoughts from some of the coaches and all of that. So that will be next Wednesday, December 20th, bright and early in the morning. Check your local listings for more. From all of us here at Gopher Digital Productions, thanks for watching.